Hi there! On today's leg of our accessibility journey, we are going to explore alternative text. Alternative text, or alt text, provides a description of visual or auditory elements on a screen. Since we will be focusing on multimedia accessibility in the future, this video is going to provide guidance for alt text for visual elements on a screen, specifically images and data tables. A good alt text contributes to the meaning or the experience of what is occurring on screen. And while the alt text is intended for screen readers, it can also support learners by providing a description that helps them make sense of the surrounding content by reinforcing the main idea. Let's consider this image and how the alt text can help contribute to the meaning or the experience. This image of a service dog with its handler is intended to reinforce the content of the page. Without an alt tag, the screen reader would call this image Adobe stock _365897724.jpg, which is meaningless, and it would be flagged as an accessibility error. You could use an alt text that provides a general description, such as guide dog, and that meets accessibility criteria, but it misses an opportunity to contribute to the meaning of an image. A well-written alt text will assist the learner in understanding the purpose of the image and the content surrounding it. So if this page is about service animals and the importance of allowing them to do their jobs when their harness is on, then an appropriate alt text could be, guide dog wearing harness awaits its handler's command. Or, if the surrounding content is about the bond between service animals and their owners, then a meaningful alt text might read, handler affectionately pets his guide dog's head. Now, notice that none of these alt tags say picture of or image of. And that's because the screen reader is going to start the description with the phrase image of. And so saying image of and image of is redundant. Sometimes images are strictly decorative. They are used to provide visual appeal to the page layout, but they don't contribute to the meaning or experience of the content. In those cases, we want to mark those images as decorative, and a screen reader will not acknowledge the image as it reads the text. Another important consideration for alt tags is that they should not exceed 150 characters. So here's an example of a graphic with a lot of details. It would be impossible to describe every detail on this graphic in less than 150 characters. And while there are special alt text rules for graphics that require a long description, for the purpose of this demonstration, we are going to focus on keeping alt text less than 150 characters. For this image, a simple alt text could read comparative size of the planets. But while that is what the graphic shows, it does not exactly support the meaning, and it's redundant given that the heading already says size of planets by diameter. There is an opportunity here to provide guidance as to the purpose of the graphic to reinforce the content. Depending on the content the graphic is reinforcing, an appropriate alt tag could read, diagram indicates the sun is significantly larger than all of the planets combined. You'll notice here that I do specify that the image is a diagram, and that is so the user understands that the purpose of the graphic is informational. Another logical way to display the data from this image is in a table. And that leads us to the other ways to label visual elements in your course content. Tables need header labels. Look at these two tables. We can use our site to identify and make a connection between the data cells and their headings. However, only one of these two tables have the headers defined in the code. Now, you don't need to know how to read and write code to define table headers. You just need to know how to tell Canvas or UDOIT to do it for you. Without defining headers, a screen reader would have read the undefined table like this. Table with 4 columns and 5 rows. Planet, diameter, circumference, surface area, Mercury, 4,900 kilometers, 15,329 kilometers. I won't read the entire thing aloud, but consider how challenging it would be to make meaning out of this information. However, once headers are assigned, screen readers speak one cell at a time and reference the associated header cells, so the reader doesn't lose context. Headers can be defined by columns, rows, or both, and Canvas will prompt you to set them as you create a table. Notice in this first table, The top row is the header. And so we would select header row and select apply. And now the screen reader knows how to communicate that to the user. In the second example, the first column is the header. And so again, we define the header column, and the screen reader will know how to communicate that. Finally, tables should only be used for data and never for layout. If you take a look at this page, you can see that I have 3 columns of information. The first one says tables are for data, not layout. The second says layout can be achieved in more accessible ways. And the third says use of headers make for a better layout. And to a sighted reader, they can make sense of this. But because I put this in a table, it is not accessible, and the screen reader will read this left to right. And so the experience for those using a screen reader would be hearing tables are for data, layout can be achieved, use of headers, image of, image of, image of, not layout, in more accessible ways, make for better layout. If you find yourself needing to work on an accessible page layout, be sure to visit the video on page structure, which will provide guidance on how to use heading levels to set up your pages. You can also use the online course template or classroom template to help you with page layout. These templates have accessibility features already built in. So let's now go to UDOIT. And you should be pretty familiar with it by now. And if you don't want to always end up on this landing page, you can say skip this welcome message in the future. So let's start with probably one of the more common errors you will see, which is alternative text should not be the image file name. And if we go in here, it's going to show us everywhere where there is an image loaded to the page that needs a file name. And again, here you can see our description of what is wrong, what the current alt text is, and a space for us to provide an appropriate alt text. And so I've applied this new alt text. I can see that I'm keeping it under my 150 characters. And I also have this image several other places in my course. And starting at the end of February, UDOIT will have this feature where you can apply your new alt text to all identical images, which will save time. Here again is an example of a decorative image, and so we will mark this as decorative. And here's our large graphic. So we're going to give that a longer alt text, but we're still staying within the less than 150 character threshold. Now let's take a look at table heading issues. Here we can expand our preview, and we see that we want both the top row and the first column to be headers. And so we will indicate both. And because I have this table in a couple places in my course, I am going to apply to all identical issues. And again, this feature will be made available by the end of February. And we'll hit save, and we're set. Again, the guidance for using alternative text for visual elements is that the alternative text should contribute to the meaning or the experience of what is occurring on screen. It should be less than 150 characters in most instances. And tables should be used for data and not for layout. And that data should have a header indicated, whether it be in the column, the row, or both. Good luck, everybody.